Paul, I've said let's debate the crucifixion and resurrection. The crucifixion according to the Quran and the resurrection according to the Bible. Let's debate that.
Will you even begin?
Will you let me?
Will you begin?
Okay, I'll try.
Hurry up.
Try. I noticed that Paul is afraid to debate.
I confess, I am
He's
afraid
so
to debate.
frightened that he's actually treading water. We will debate what the Quran says happened to Christ being crucified because, Paul, without a crucifixion, there is no resurrection.
That's right.
You go up to Christians to debate them about the Bible. I want to debate you about your Quran. Why? Why is the Dawah team scared to debate the Quran?
The Dawah team.
Why are you scared?
Because I'm scared.
I can tell that, but why? Paul, I was wondering if you'd be willing to have a debate with me.
Well, do you know, I've been going around the last 10 minutes asking Christians, today Christ is risen, they all proclaim.
Praise the Lord.
And do you know, none of them will debate me on this subject of the resurrection of Jesus on Sunday. So that's why I'm here today. It's your most important day of the year as a Christian.
Yeah.
Let's debate that.
What I would like to actually debate, the question that
I don't know.
perhaps
So are you up for debating
perhaps
that? Are you up
we
for
can
debating that?
perhaps we can incorporate two things together.
No. Today is Easter Sunday.
Hold on, Paul.
No. Hang on a
I'm
second,
offering.
hang on a second.
Hold on.
I'm offering
I'll let
one.
you speak and then I'll speak.
Thank you. This is a one-time offer to you, sir, to debate the only subject that matters to Christians today, which is the belief that Christ is risen. I'm
Praise
happy,
the Lord.
as he says. Now, I'm going to, as a Muslim, I will happily debate that today. I'm not going to debate what Muhammad did or what the Quran says. I'm here solely based on the Bible to talk about the resurrection of Jesus, the belief in the resurrection of Jesus. That is my proposal.
My counter proposal is this.
No, take it or leave it.
I didn't
Take it or leave
interrupt
it.
you, Paul. Don't interrupt me.
Take it or leave it. Is it
Don't,
yes or no?
don't interrupt, Paul.
Is it yes or no?
Don't interrupt, Paul.
Can't
So,
answer yes or no.
I will.
Yes or no?
Why are you
the
frightened?
builder, yes or no?
Why are you frightened, Paul?
Yes or no?
Why are you frightened, Paul?
I am terribly frightened.
You seem like a man who's frightened.
I am very frightened.
You do seem like a man who's
I
frightened.
am very frightened. Now, yes or no,
So,
Bob the Builder?
the question.
Yes or no?
Here's my answer.
Yes or no?
Can I finish?
Well, can you start?
I'm
Never
trying
mind
to.
finish.
Can
You
I
haven't even
try?
started yet.
Can I try?
Let's have a yes or no, Bob the Builder.
So
Come on,
my
Bob.
answer to the
Come
question.
on, come
My
on.
answer to this
Speed
question
up a little bit, sir.
is
Speed
yes.
up.
I will debate him on the resurrection
right.
on a Sunday.
Shall we have
Let me
5
finish.
minutes each?
I haven't
I'll have
finished.
5 minutes.
Do you notice? Paul doesn't want to let me finish. No. I haven't
5 minutes
finished.
each. Yeah, what do you
I
time?
have
What do you
not
time?
finished.
This
Paul,
gentleman will time.
Paul,
He has said
Paul,
yes. We'll have a debate.
Paul, you have not let me
Hallelujah.
finish.
Hallelujah.
Paul, you have not let me
Oh,
finish.
you're starting.
Paul, you have
The
not let
clock
me
is
finish.
ticking.
Paul, you
You
have
have
not let me
5 minutes.
finish.
You have 5
I've
minutes.
agreed nothing yet. Paul, you have not let me finish. I
Yes
said,
or no?
and I said, let me finish.
You
I
haven't
said,
started yet.
are you
Hurry
frightened
up.
to let me finish my answer, Paul?
I am frightened, yes.
I can tell you're frightened.
I am very frightened.
So let me finish then.
Will you start?
Will you let me?
Will you even begin?
Will you let me?
Will you begin?
Okay, I'll try.
Hurry up.
Try.
Hurry up.
I noticed that Paul is afraid to
I am.
debate.
I confess, I am
He's
afraid
so
to debate.
frightened that he's
Very
actually
frightened.
treading water.
Hold your hands.
Do you want me?
I'll hold it, Paul.
Thank you. He's
Thank you.
holding my hand.
Thank
I'm
you.
so
So-
frightened by this man.
I will debate the question of Christ's resurrection on a
Hallelujah.
Sunday.
Right, 5 minutes.
Let me
5
finish,
minutes.
Paul.
Is it yes
Let
or
me
no?
finish, Paul.
Hurry up.
Let me finish, because every time I try to answer, you interrupt me.
You haven't started yet.
Well, I have
Hurry
just
up.
the camera will tell of your lies, my friend.
Stop it,
So I will
I'll
try
give you
again.
1 more minute, then I'm
I
walking
will
away.
try again. So, I will debate the question with Paul about Christ's resurrection on Sunday.
Hallelujah! Let's debate the resurrection of Jesus.
Let me finish,
Get
Paul.
on with it.
You see, he's not letting me finish.
Please get on with it.
Thank you. But included in that debate,
One-time offer,
included
yes or
in
no?
that debate,
No.
we will debate what the Quran says happened to Christ being crucified, because Paul, without a crucifixion, there is no resurrection.
That's right.
So we have to debate the crucifixion to debate the resurrection.
Okay,
So
no,
we
you-
will
you can-
debate
you-
the
you
crucifixion
can
on the
stop now.
basis of the
Okay.
Quran, and we will debate the
Let me
resurrection
respond to
on the
this.
basis
Now,
of the
I
Bible.
made a one-time offer to this gentleman. I use that in inverted commas.
you
He's not
accept the
really a
challenge,
gentleman.
Paul.
And he has refused my
challenge.
one-time offer to base only the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Why don't
He
you want
now-
to debate the
he
Quran?
He wants to add other religious issues.
Can you have a
in.
resurrection without a crucifixion?
So you have failed my
Can
challenge.
you have a crucifixion
Bye-bye.
without a
Bye-bye.
resurrection? Paul,
How are you?
Paul, can you have a crucifixion without a resurrection, Paul? Paul, Paul, what is the point in debating a resurrection without talking about the crucifixion?
Exactly.
Paul,
Look at him.
Paul,
Look at your heavyweight.
Paul,
Look at your
I'm an
heavyweight.
ignorant man. I need dawah.
Ignorance.
I need you to talk to me about the
give
Quran.
dawah, give dawah.
You're under a religious
I'm
obligation.
scared. You said how scared I am.
You
Look,
are
look,
scared.
Look at my hand. It's
Yeah,
shaking.
so let's debate the
and this hand is
crucifixion in
shaking
the
too.
Quran.
So
Is
I can't-
Allah a
You
liar,
are
Paul?
embarrassing, Paul.
Paul, is
Bye-bye,
Allah a liar?
bye. Anyone want to debate the subject
Paul,
of does
is
Jesus
Allah
rise
a
from
liar?
the dead?
I will debate it with you. So long as we can debate the crucifixion according to the
That's not the
Quran.
officer. That's not the
What?
officer.
Is Allah a liar, Paul? Paul, 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 is Allah a liar? Paul, why are you walking away, Paul? Paul, Paul,
Really good.
Paul, Paul,
Running away.
Paul, why are you running, Paul? Paul, stop running. Paul, stop running. Why are you running, Paul?
Running from the debate.
Paul, I've said let's debate the crucifixion and resurrection. The crucifixion according to the
Let me
Quran
repeat.
and the resurrection according to the Bible. Let's debate
Let me
that.
repeat.
Debate
I
that,
made
Paul.
to him a one-time offer
Do you want
today
it? Come on, Paul.
to debate
you want
the
to debate it?
resurrection of Jesus. You want to debate the Quran,
Paul.
and I want to debate the resurrection.
I've said I'll include your debate in my
That's
debate.
not on offer.
Why
part
are
of
you
the debate.
why are you frightened to debate your
Because
book?
I have bad
part of the
nerves.
debate.
Why are you frightened to debate
I've got
your
bad
book?
nerves. Bad nerves.
Let me ask you this question.
No,
Is
you
Allah a
haven't.
liar?
Paul.
Is Allah a liar?
Is that how bad it is now?
Answer, answer.
Is Allah a liar, Paul?
Is that how low it is now, the levels?
Allah. Is he a
Answer,
liar?
bruv.
Paul, I'm asking you.
I'm ignoring you, dear. I'm ignoring you.
Every week.
Why don't you want to answer that
Every week this man
question?
criticizes the Bible. He
that?
toasts the scripture
Every
on
single
a weekly
week,
basis.
you go up to Christians to debate them about the Bible. I want to debate you about your Quran. Why?
Why?
Because I don't
Why
want
is
to.
the Dawah team scared to debate the
The
Quran?
Dawah team.
Why are you scared?
Because I'm scared.
I can tell that, but why?
To do with my upbringing.
So,
To do with my upbringing.
let me ask you this simple question.
Don't try to
What's
make it now.
your
It's
definition
nothing
of a liar,
personal.
Paul?
Nothing personal.
You embody it. What's your real name, by the way?
What's your
Chris?
definition of a
What's your real name?
What's your definition of a
What's your
liar?
real name? Is it Chris? That's not his real name.
It's not my real name, but everybody knows it's not my real
Yeah, but
name.
what is your real name?
Yeah, but everyone knows it's not my
But
real
what's your
name.
real name?
So he doesn't want to answer the question.
What's your real name?
So the question I'm asking Paul, perhaps someone else could answer it. What is the definition of a liar?
I have no idea. My English is very poor.
We know that,
My English is very
Paul.
poor. So I'm
Every
English,
week you're
anyone
here
else?
debating
Anyone
about the
else
Bible.
Who speaks English well? can
What
give
a
it
court. Can anyone answer this question?
Show you
Paul,
who.
why are you running? Okay.
I'm running away from
So let me ask anyone this question.
I think
What is the definition of a liar? What's the definition of a liar?
Look, switch it off. It's all the Dawah channels.
Why are the Dawah channels running away? Why is the Dawah team running away? Why? Why are they running? Why are they running? It's a simple question. I'll ask you then. Let's go back. Let's come back to you. What's the definition of a liar?
I'm not one second choice.
What's the definition of a liar? He doesn't want to answer the question. Let me ask this brother. I'm making a massive assumption here. Okay, that's fine. I'm no one either. I know. What's your definition of a liar? You don't want to answer the question. Do you want to answer this question? What's your definition of a liar? You're not obliged. This is true. It is interesting that the Muslim Dawah team don't want to
What
debate
Muslim
their
Dawah team are you
book.
talking about? You're going on like it's one
talking about you.
collective entity.
I'm talking about you.
Am I part of a Muslim
So,
Dawah team?
you want to debate
Am I
me?
part of a Muslim Dawah
What's
team?
the definition
No, you
of a
made
liar?
a claim. Am I part of the Muslim Dawah team?
What's the definition of a liar?
No, you made a claim. Am I part of the Muslim Dawah team?
Yes, I made a claim.
Am I part of the
I
Muslim
believe
Dawah
so.
team? So it's a belief.
Yes, it's a belief. It's a perception.
So, yeah.
Is it true or is it false?
So you're a liar.
Discrimination. So, right, why am I a liar? Tell me why though, why have I lied to you?
Okay, why have you lied to me?
You said that I lied about you, tell me why I am lying.
Okay, cool. Number one, because I'm not a part of the Muslim
Okay,
Dawah team.
so I said something that was false.
Yeah, so that's a lie.
Yeah,
It's a lie.
yeah.
A team necessitates there's more than one person.
Yeah.
I'm here by myself.
Okay,
It's even with anyone
right.
else. So that's a lie, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, earlier on, when we was having a conversation, and he said that the Jews, in the Quran it says that Jews did kill the Prophet. The Jews did kill the Prophet Jesus, It doesn't say that in the Quran. And you know it doesn't say
What
that
does
in
it
the Quran.
say?
It says they claimed to have killed the Prophet.
And why did they make that claim?
No, that's besides
Why
the
do they
point.
make that
That's
claim?
besides the point. I'm showing you why you're a liar.
It's interesting.
I'm showing you. You asked me
It's
questions. I'm showing you why
interesting
you're a liar.
you don't want
I'm
to
showing you why
say
you're a
the
liar.
next part of that verse.
No. I'm showing you why you're a liar.
It says in the
there's
Quran
a difference
because it
between-
was made to appear to them.
Yeah, but either way.
So
it's
you're definite when you accuse
See
me
that?
of
See
being
how
a
we
liar.
tries to turn the combo
So
to what he wants it to be.
your
I'm gonna talk to
accusation
you.
that I am a
because you're listening,
liar
So yeah,
is
my
that
accusation
I
was he's a
have
liar
said something that
because
is
you said
not
that in the Quran it
true
says the Jews did
about
kill
you.
did kill
So
Jesus.
I have given
but then when you actually brought the
appearance
verse
of
up,
something that is false.
it says that they claim to have killed
But the
Jesus.
Quran
and he knew this.
also says
So
that.
he's a liar.
The Quran
Does that make
says
sense?
that
So
it was
I proved
made
my
to
point,
appear.
so I'm going to walk
Okay,
off.
he doesn't
because
want
he's
to
not
debate.
sincere.
He doesn't want to debate.
You don't want to debate.
He
You want to
doesn't
preach.
Show me your evidence.
Okay, I don't have the Quran on me, but we read it earlier. It's on film. What
So
the
it's an
Quran?
allegation.
No. We've read the verse.
Okay,
It's
can you show
on
me that?
film. It's on film. I don't have my Quran
Okay,
on me.
then I don't believe you.
Okay, you don't believe
If you're making a point.
So
and
what
you're
we can
saying
do,
there's evidence
I
for
am
it.
sure we can find a Quran, and someone might have it online, and we can just pull up the verse and look at it.
Ask
Yeah?
him if we read it.
fine.
Okay.
He was there when we read it.
Okay, well, what's your claim?
Well, did we read the Quranic verse in full?
Unlike you, I'm not a liar.
Okay,
So we did read the verse.
we have read
You know
the
what I'm saying?
verse.
We did read the verse. I'm not going to stand there and
So
start trying to lie.
what it says is that the Jews boast that they have killed Christ the Messiah. Sorry, Christ, son of Mary. That they crucified him, but they didn't. That it was made to appear to them. And those who believe it or have no certainty about what they believe, and they have nothing but conjecture. That's a summary of the verse. I'm not doing it ad verbatim, but I think that's a fair summary. I don't think I'm misrepresenting it.
Okay, what's your conclusion from that evidence?
My conclusion is that when we take the claims made by Muslim scholars over the centuries,
What were the claims?
that Allah saved Jesus by replacing him with someone else,
That's one theory.
that Allah
Speak about the swing
becomes
theory.
alive.
Speak about the swing theory. So why do you want to choose that
Okay,
narrative?
who's responsible for life and death?
That's besides the point.
No,
You
it's
just
actually.
Said, no, it's not.
it's-
It's not.
okay,
It's not.
he says.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
you think
You
the
just
question's
said,
not relevant.
No, you just said.
You think
he
the
took him off
question is
the
not
cross and
relevant.
replaced him with someone else.
Yeah,
But
we'll
that's
talk
one
about the
theory.
swoon theory. Let's do the swoon theory. Let's
That's
do it.
one theory. I'm
Okay,
just
let's
saying
do the
include it,
swoon
include it.
theory. Let's do the swoon theory. So, according to Islam, Allah is responsible for life and death. Allah is the
According to everyone,
responsible.
according to all
Yeah,
religions.
exactly. So, if we take the swoon theory seriously, another theory made by Muslims, because the Muslims have no certainty about what happened, and the Muslims are the one that are full of conjecture, not the Christians, because Christians are all agreed Christ died on the cross. According to the swoon theory, Allah chose not to take his life even though he was being crucified to die, and Allah allowed people to believe, and Allah
Messiah can't die.
allowed
I swear the
people to
Messiah can't
believe that he died.
Can the Messiah die?
Now, if
According
I
to the Bible, can the
convince
Messiah
you that
die?
something is
You can't.
true that
So
is
how
not
are you
true,
saying that Christ is the
what
Messiah?
am I?
So it works against you. Your own arguments are
A
working
liar.
against you.
So what is Allah?
Listen, you're proposing all this evidence, and like I said, I'm not sure if I believe you. So
I am just asking you to believe your Quran.
But you're making a conclusion, and you expect me to agree with you when I haven't seen the evidence that you presented.
I have given you the
you're
Quranic
ma-
text.
Okay, that doesn't
summary,
show
in
me. You
summary.
have to show me. For me to believe what you're saying.
You can ask this
you have
brother,
to
we've
show me.
already read it.
Okay.
My summary
Okay,
is
do you-
sound.
Is it fair what you're saying? The evidence
About
that
my
he's
summary of what the Quran says.
Is the evidence that he's presented?
Okay, we've got it here.
Here's the text.
We got it here. We've got the text here. And for their saying, Indeed, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, the messenger of Allah, and they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but another was made to resemble him to them. And indeed, those who differ over it are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge of it except the following of assumption, and they did not. Give me your
That's what he's
interpretation.
trying to say. He's trying to say God's
I'm not a scholar, and I'm not an expert on religion, but you made
Okay.
it. But the thing is, you're making a
Come on, Soco films. This is really what's going on.
I'm
Is this
just
what's
saying.
come to?
I'm saying-
Muslim interpretation.
Is this what it's come
Not
to?
mine. Every interpretation, the swoon theory he said, the one that I've given, none of these are Christian made up. All of them
Does
on
God
what
deceive in the
Muslims
Bible?
have said.
Does God deceive in the Bible?
But according to
Does
the
God deceive in the
Quran,
Bible?
according to the
God,
Quran,
does God deceive in the Bible?
according to the Quran, you had your
He
chance.
doesn't want to answer the question. He's scared.
There-
Just like how you
according
said
to the
Paul
Quran,
Williams was scared. He's scared.
They have no
Say it.
knowledge of it
Scared.
except the
Scared.
following
Scared.
of
Scared.
assumption,
Scared.
and they did not kill him for certain. Those who differ over it are in doubt about it, that they're following conjecture. So the Quran is saying that we Christians are in
From your
conjecture.
interpretation.
This is what the Quran is saying.
Yeah, I know the Muslim interpretation.
This is not my I have not mentioned anything that a Christian believes.
Okay, what Muslims have interpreted it. What you just said is you are basically extracting interpretations from what Muslims have said. So give me the names of the Muslims that have interpreted that verse
Yeah.
that you've just cited right now.
Well, Ahmadiyat, Shabia Ali, those would be two of the names. Zakir Naik, Bilal Iraq. What? Sorry,
Hilali Khan.
Hilali Khan. So there's four names right there. Okay. Now let me ask you this question.
But before you ask me that question, I just want to clarify a certain thing. Yeah, you're gathering extracted interpretations from what scholars have said. Now, you must be aware, you're a clever man, that scholars. There's different types of scholars, and different scholars differ in their interpretations of certain verses.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes.
So what you just presented is one way of looking at a
Yes.
particular type of evidence.
Yes.
And other scholars will disagree and will say the opposite of what you said.
Okay.
So if you're trying to convince me in believing that what you're saying is correct, then I'm in doubt. I'm always going to be in doubt because
Now, according to the Quran, it's not you that should be in doubt. It's me. According to the Quran, it is me that should be in doubt about what actually happened, and it should be me that is speculating and making up conjecture, different theories to try and explain the events. But the reality is, for 2,000 years, the church has been consistently clear. Christ died on a cross. 7th century comes along, this verse is revealed, and suddenly the Muslims are in doubt and making up conjecture to explain their ayah. But the Quran says it shouldn't be you in doubt and making up conjectures, it should be me and him. And me and him should disagree. And me and the other Christians should disagree. And fight about this and fall out and argue about what happened. According to the Quran, if the Quran is true, if the words of Allah are real. But actually, when we look at sociologically what's really happening, all Christians agree that Christ was crucified, died on a cross and rose on the third day. But Muslims cannot agree about what actually happened to Jesus, and they are conjecturing and they are making up different kinds of theories to explain what happened in the past. But the point I'm making to you is that theologically speaking, Allah is wrong because let me finish. Theologically speaking, Allah is wrong because Allah says we should be full of doubt and conjecture, but the reality on the ground is, when we look at all the evidence, it's the Muslims that are in doubt and full of conjecture. So Allah has made one false statement and is possibly lying. So, can we
Alright,
believe
let me
such a
ask you a
book?
question. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we're in doubt because of the fact there's disagreement.
Muslims are in doubt, that's clear.
Yeah. You're saying that the doubt originates from the disagreement of the scholars about the depth of...
Which you've just testified to yourself.
Okay. No, I haven't testified it. I haven't testified anything. So, okay, let me just ask you a question, yeah? From a Christian perspective, yeah? Okay, so you're saying that the origins of Christ's death have always remained basically the same throughout Christian scripture, right?
Christians,
Scripture,
yeah.
right? Throughout the
Christians are clear.
scripture,
Christ was
right? So you're
crucified
saying
and he died on a cross.
So you're saying that's evidence that's consistent throughout the whole of scripture, right? That's correct. But what about the rest of the part? Why do they have to keep changing the Bibles over and over again?
Okay.
So you're saying that basically your point is that that has remained basically consistent.
Yep.
But why hasn't everything else in the book remained consistent? Because like you said, the
So,
Bible has adapted to
May I
what it's
reply?
like.
May I reply? So,
It's like you're picking and choosing.
yeah, but here's the thing. The topic that we're talking about is what happened to Christ on the cross. Okay? The biblical evidence is clear. Christ died on a cross. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all clear about that. These are all independent authors, by the way. They're all writing independently of one another. Paul is clear about that. He's also writing independently of the others. It's clear that they are aware of one another's texts. Certainly the synoptic gospels are. However, and this is indisputable. You know, you look at Dr. Daniel Wallace, Dr. Bart Ehrman, a man who makes your point about the Bible being changed. Let me finish. Dr. Bart Ehrman, who makes your very point about Bibles being changed. Dr. Bart Ehrman agrees. He believes Christ was crucified, died on a cross. Dr. Daniel Wallace, who argues with Bart Ehrman about whether we can trust the Bible, believes Christ died on a cross. Bruce Metzger believes Christ died on a cross. Dr. James White believes Christ died on a cross. No serious scholar, except in the Muslim world, no serious scholar believes that Christ was not crucified. The historical evidence is clear. We have historians outside of the Bible talking about Christ's crucifixion. We have church fathers writing outside of the Bible about Christ's crucifixion. Paul was writing to people who already believed in Christ's crucifixion before he wrote his letters. Which means that the claim that Christ was crucified was there before he wrote about it.
So can I ask, so are you basically saying in summary that the Bible is more valid than the Quran? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what I'm getting at. You're basically saying that there's one common agreement in the Bible that Christ died in a specific way. But yet in those literature in the Quran, there's disagreement. So from what I'm gathering, you're basically saying that the Bible is more valid form of evidence than the Quran. That's basically what you're proposing.
That is part of what I'm proposing.
Okay,
it's
then
not the full
I can
No,
refute
let me
that.
finish.
Okay,
Hold on.
no. You've had your time to speak. Let me speak.
You have not.
You've had your time to
Hold
speak.
on. I'll let you
If
finish
you're-
and then I'll
if you're
reply.
gonna say
I'll let you
that-
finish and I'll reply.
If you're going to say that, wait.
I'm going to help you.
Okay, if you're going to
I want to try and help you. I want to try and help
If
you.
you're going to say that,
This is
then
not
you
the
have to look
fullness
at the
of my
whole
argument.
thing.
This
You
is
have to
not
look
the
at whole
fullness
thing.
of my argument. I'm trying to help
All right,
you.
then clarify. Please.
I am not trying. I'm trying to help you. So when you respond, you can respond to the fullness of my
Okay,
argument.
please clarify then.
Okay, you're right. I am arguing that the Gospels.
Selectively, very
No, it's not selective
He is
at all.
very
Let me finish. I am arguing that the Gospels are more reliable on this fact. I am also arguing that the Quran imputes the honor of Allah by making him a liar, and the Quran is making a statement that is
How does he
also.
make Allah a liar?
Let me finish.
How is Allah making
Let
a
me
liar?
finish. You can respond in your turn. That the Quran is also making a statement that is factually false.
Factually false.
So those are my 3 points. Gospel's more reliable about what happened to Jesus on the cross. The Quran makes Allah into a liar, and the Quran makes a false statement about facts.
So the full statement, just repeat for me again.
The false statements are this. The Quran says that the people of the first centuries are in doubt about what happened to Jesus and are full of conjecture. However, the testimony...
How does that make it false though?
if you let me finish, I'll
How does that
explain.
make it false? Go
Can
on.
I explain? Okay. So that's what the Quran says. But the fact of history is that Jews, Christians and Romans all agree Christ died on a cross. There is no dispute amongst them.
So that makes the Quran wrong, because they're all in agreement.
Secondly, Muslims from the 7th century are coming up with one theory after another to explain this verse. That means that it is the Muslims are in doubt about what actually happened and are making conjecture. But the Quran says it should be the other way around. So your reply?
Okay, so just because the Quran says, as you mentioned, that something is in doubt, right? That doesn't make it false. Okay? If I don't know what's happening to you, right? Say for instance that you die and I don't know the origins of your death, and I say to someone else, okay, I don't know if he died, that doesn't make me a liar, that doesn't make me false, just to clarify your point. Because the Muslims don't know the origins of Jesus' death, that doesn't make them a liar and that doesn't make them false. Okay? Just to be clear. But that's what you're arguing. And you, also what I've noticed is you're basically you're supporting your argument in saying that the whole Quran is false by saying that just because the origins of Jesus' death is unclear in the Quran and it's basically clear in the Bible, then you're saying that the Quran is false and the Bible is somehow more valid than the Quran, which I disagree with.
You've misunderstood my argument slightly.
Because if you're going to select one extract of the Quran to support your argument that the Bible is somehow more valid than the Quran, then you also have to look at your own Bible and look at all the other disputable evidence in the Bible which the Quran can also pick up on. I don't know, I haven't read the Bible, but I know there's certain things that are unclear in the Bible which I could easily raise to you the same way you're raising to me.
Okay, let me reply to that. We're talking about things that are factual. Factual. Okay. So it is a fact that Muslims are disputing what actually happened to Jesus. That's a fact. The evidence is there. You've got Ahmadiyya who proposes the swoon theory. You've got other Muslims who are proposing the replacement theory. You've got Muslims who propose an illusion theory. There are Muslims, some people say that it was Judas Iscariot on the cross. Some Muslims say that it was actually one of the faithful followers of Jesus who offered himself to be a replacement because he wanted to die in the place of Jesus. Muslims have lots of different theories about what actually happened. It's sociologically proven, it's evidential, you can just get all the theories and I invite you to do so and look at them. So there's no dispute about the fact that Muslims are conjecturing about what happened in the first century.
How do you know?
Let me finish.
How do you know? How do you know the evidence in the
Let-
Bible is more valid?
Okay, I'm going to come to that. I promise I will come to that.
How do you know that's
I
more
will
valid?
come to that. I will come to that. Now, the Quran is saying that what should be happening is that the people of the first century should be in doubt and the people of the first century should be conjecturing. But when we look at the evidence, like Josephus and other historians, and we look at the early church fathers, and we look at the literature of the New Testament, the witness is consistent no matter who is writing, whether they're Jewish, Roman, pagan or Christian. Christ was crucified. No conjecture, no doubt. Christ died. No conjecture, no doubt. So, when we weigh the evidence against the statement of the Quran,
Alleged evidence.
yes, go and look into it.
Alleged.
Go and look into it. When we weigh the evidence, and we compare it to the claim that the Quran makes should be happening, we are forced to conclude that the Quran is false.
From your alleged evidence.
You asked about the Bible.
One more point.
You asked about the Bible and never got onto it.
Sorry.
Okay, so why do I believe that the Gospels are more reliable? I believe that the Gospels are more reliable because they were written by the community that surrounded the eyewitnesses. And those eyewitnesses didn't go and proclaim Christ crucified, Christ resurrected because someone else told them. They went and proclaimed Christ crucified, Christ resurrected because they had seen and experienced something that convinced them that Christ had risen from the dead. Now, if Christ had risen from the dead, that means he had to die. And they testified that he died on a cross.
And you're getting that from scripture, right? You're saying
I'm getting that from
you're-
scripture.
yeah, exactly. So then why that's what I'm saying, why is it that your scripture is more valid than what the Quran
Okay,
says? But I know
so-
you proposed that you said there's many different types of theories and different types of evidence, but I'm sure equally that there's also different types of evidence supporting the theory as you allege, that the origins of Christ's death are unknown. You know what I mean? It works both ways. You can't just propose this evidence and say that supports the theory of Christ's death, because there's equally, I know for sure that I could research. Let me finish point.
Okay.
You could research online, and it could also equally say that, okay, this is my evidence to prove that the Quran is proven why it's saying that Christ's death is unknown. You know what I mean? So it works both ways, man.
Okay, so let me address that point. Do a thought experiment with me. Okay? Let's just do a logical thought experiment.
Okay, sure.
Okay, an event happens in your life, yeah? right? Sorry, I just want to structure this properly for the thought experiment to work. So an event happens today that me and you are both witnesses to, and it radically changes our life in some way. Okay? Radically changes how we behave, how we operate. Okay? And then someone writes about those events 10 years later and describes them, and someone writes about those events 40 years later and describes them, and someone writes about those events 70 years later and describes them, and then someone writes about those events 600 years later and describes them. Now, the ones that are within 70 years are all written by people within living memory of the events. And they are written in the country where those events happen, and they are written by people who claim to have access to the witnesses. And then the 600 years later event, the recording of these events, was written in a different country, a different language, by someone who never saw a thing. And these two accounts disagree. Now, not bringing the Quran and the Bible into it, though of course you know that I'm using an allusion to the Quran and the Bible, but just logically, if you came along talking about this event that affected your life and my life and changed us, and you're reading it 2,000 years later, who would you believe to be more accurate? The one written in the time by people who spoke the language, who were writing in the area where it occurred?
Yeah, that one.
Thank you. Okay, so my point to you is that logically, you agree with me that the stronger evidence is the one that is closest to the time.
If I'm the person who sent I know you're using this analogy, right? But the thing is, like I said, you're applying it to the context of Jesus Christ, and assuming that there were Christians that were there, and they believe God was a man. You know what I mean? But we believe God in the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's the root of the problem, because no one is unclear. No one saw. I mean,
Who's unclear? Sorry. You're saying, sorry, hold on. You've just made something that's really important to this. Who is unclear?
the fact that
We Christians are very clear. So who's unclear?
The point that's unclear.
Dude, stop engaging.
The point that's ambiguous coming from you presented an analogy saying if an event was to occur and both of us was present and we happened to write down what had happened, then that would be clear because we were both there. We could both agree that that's what happened. But the point I'm making is that Jesus Christ, no one is sure that there was a witness there. Because for all we know, we don't know if the person could have just made up those statements. That's my point. Someone could have just made up those statements and said, okay, Jesus Christ died on the cross and made up. But
So let's just cut to that because you got a bit, brother.
Okay, well, I'm not opposing my belief. I'm not trying to convince you. You're trying to convince me that what's happening in the Quran is a lie.
Let me reply to that. 2 points. Firstly, your own logic, as this brother's rightly pointed out, would work against you.
I'm not.
Let me finish. So, but the second point is, would you agree with me that if we have different witnesses saying the same thing, that it gives credence to the fact that what they are saying is true?
That's not true. He's lying. He's lying. Ask him who was present when God. Ask him who was present when Jesus was resurrected.
Now you see, this brother's agitated because he lost an earlier
It's
debate.
not. Because he's a liar.
Yeah.
He's a straight liar.
Sorry.
Ask him who was present when Jesus was resurrected.
Right. All right. Okay. He's being rude now. He's being rude. You're being rude.
All right. Do you believe, right? No. Witness testimonies are 100% accurate.
No, of course not.
Exactly. So how do you know for certain that
Let me address that point.
testimonies are accurate?
Let me address that very point.
Yeah.
Because we find inaccuracies in the testimonies of the gospel.
And inaccuracy.
We find inaccuracies. So that fits
So
perfect.
that might be an inaccuracy.
May I
so-
finish?
But that may be an inaccuracy.
May I finish?
Go on.
Thank you. We find inaccuracies within the testimonies of the Gospels, but what we find is that there is consistent agreement about what happened to Jesus Christ. So, just as we would expect to find that if multiple variant witnesses were describing the same event, their witness would have discrepancies, but there would be a kernel of truth.
How do you know there was more
Let
witnesses?
me
That's what I mean.
finish.
You're making these,
Let me
you're
finish.
making these assumptions.
Let me finish. Because this is how courts work, my friend.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but
and we
you're-
know it
but
from
no,
our
no,
own
no,
truth.
but you're saying there's
So,
more witnesses in
hold on
Jesus
one
Christ's
second.
death.
Hold
That's
on
what
one
you're
second.
saying.
But let me flip this question back at you. Right? The Quran says Christ was not crucified. Was Muhammad a witness?
Listen, I remember
Muhammad
the
the
text,
author
so
of the
I'm not
Quran?
going to
That's
make
the
any
question you need
comment.
to ask, bro.
Was Muhammad a
I'm not
witness?
going to make any comment. I'm not gonna make any comment.
It's as simple as this.
I haven't-
Is
I-
Muhammad the
The
author of the
answer
Quran?
is obviously
I-
Is
no.
Muhammad the author of the Quran?
Why are you fighting to answer
The author of the
obvious
Quran is a
no?
witness.
I'm not.
You had your chance to debate.
The author of the Quran is a
I'm
witness.
sorry. Can we just step away from this rude person? Can we just step away
Now
from
you
this
don't mind
rude
stepping
person?
away from me, yeah?
Yeah. He's had several times to debate me and then he doesn't. Maybe he wants to heckle me. He's had several opportunities
Okay,
to
you
debate.
expect me to know the origin of Christ's death. That's why you're asking that question. Was Muhammad present when Christ died? Right? That's what you're saying.
Well, was
But
he?
I'm saying I don't know because the scripture in the Quran.
Oh
wait,
my
wait,
gosh.
What do you mean, oh my God? The scripture.
When was Muhammad born?
Let me finish my point.
Okay, I'll let you finish your
Let me
point.
finish my point.
You had your chance
I'm
to
not
debate.
talking, I'm
Stop
talking to him.
heckling.
Is
I'm
Muhammad
sorry,
the
he's
author of the
talking
Quran?
to me.
Is
Why are you
Muhammad the
being
author of
rude?
the Quran?
Why are you
Is
being
Muhammad the
rude?
author of the Quran?
He's being
His
rude.
point is not valid because
He
Muhammad
is
is not the
being
author of the Quran.
So, he is being rude.
What do you mean, how do I know?
That
That's not what we claim.
that
That's not
eye
what
in
we
the
claim.
Quran.
That's
Soco,
not what we
you want to
claim.
come this side? Let him come to this side. Go on.
I haven't read the Quran in detail to go to. But from the eye,
Can you read Arabic?
I can't read Arabic. But
So
from-
you can never read the Quran. Okay.
That's it. From that evidence that you just presented, I'm just taking that, extracting that as evidence, right? That interpretation of that specific ayah in the Quran basically says that there was the origins of Christ's death is
You really want to be on camera?
The
eh?
origin.
Nah, I really do want to
Let's
be
put,
off camera.
let's put this guy on camera.
No, no.
I've got my personal heckler today.
That's
This is
why I
my
want to be off
personal
camera.
heckler.
That's why I want to be off
He's on camera. Sorry, he's being rude and he's distracting me.
Okay, it basically suggests that the ayah in the Quran, it suggests that the origins of Christ's death is unclear. Now you just proposed the question to me, and in many ways it's a loaded question, to somehow suggest that Muhammad was present in Christ's death, when it specifically says in the ayah in the Quran that the origins of Christ's death is unclear. But you're proposing contrary evidence to suggest that
Let me be clear.
Christ died in the
Let me
Quran.
clear about my points. I am saying that if we take the statement of the Quran seriously, then we have to conclude a couple of things. One,
Literal
let
interpretation.
me finish. We have to conclude a number of things if we take what the Quran says seriously. We have to take it seriously that there is a deception going on. We have to take it seriously that there is a factually errant statement being made. And then we have to take this statement and we have to compare it to the available evidence. And we do have evidence.
Like I said, there's evidence also from
There is-
other people, from other historians in the past that will also support
No, there
the
isn't.
interpretation of the Quran.
There
that will say
isn't.
That the origin of
There
Christ's
really
death-
isn't.
Okay, all right. Well, I have to see it. To
There
believe.
really is
I
no.
have to see it. I'll make that judgment myself.
There is
I'll make that judgment
There
myself.
on the historians, such as I'll give you some historians.
About atheists.
Yeah,
I'll make that judgment myself.
I'll give you some historians. Okay.
Brother, his point
Right.
doesn't stand.
So
He's got on the assumption that the Quran was written
you
by
had your
Muhammad.
chance to debate.
I didn't have
You
no
had your
chance to
chance.
debate. I didn't have no
You had
chance
your
to
chance to
debate.
debate.
I had a chance to be preached at.
You
There's a
had
big
your
difference.
chance. You
There's a
didn't
big
want to.
difference. Yeah, because obviously
Not debate. This is me. I met my brother in the city 2 years ago. He said he's going to arrange a debate with me and Bob the builder.
You know more about the Quran than me.
Away from me, I'm here now today. We're going to have a 2 hours debate here, 3 hours debate. I go well prepared for Bob here, well prepared. 3 hours debate. I hope he's not going to run away with me. Folks, he said we're going to pick a topic that is very, very, you know,
Josephus was writing between 37 and 120 AD. Okay? Sertorius was writing between 69 and 140 AD. Tacitus was writing between 55 and 117 AD. And what do these people say? Okay? They say things like this. This is a summary of the points in their works. They're saying that Jews and Gentiles were followers of Christ. They're saying that Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate. They're saying that leading Jews stoned James, and they're saying that the accusation against the Christians were that they were breakers of the law. Now, when we compare the statements made by Josephus, to the statements that we find in the New Testament, we find that there's correlation. The New Testament says...
Not cause correlation.
Let me finish. We're saying that the New Testament says that Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate and died. Josephus is saying Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate and died. In Sertorius, it describes Jesus as a troublemaker and a center of a new superstition. This is how Sertorius describes Jesus. The New Testament makes Christ to be out
But
a troublemaker.
your evidence is based on correlation. That's my point. It's
So-
not based on cause.
What evidence do you have to validate the Quran?
I am not going to make a comment on that because, like I said, I have to gather all the evidence possible. Like I said,
Please do.
No. Like you told me to research.
Yes,
I need to
absolutely.
research, you know what I mean?
I
Right now,
want you to.
Right now, I'm struggling to debate with you on matters like this because usually it's important for me to get prepared and knowledgeable on certain topics the same way you're knowledgeable on these.
Appreciate your honesty, bro.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Appreciate
So
your
it's
honesty.
like,
I appreciate your
if anything, you got a certain advantage over me, but I'm still doing my best. So by next week, I'm happy to gather all the evidence.
Please do.
And then we can have a proper debate
Please
with
do.
the evidence I have, with the evidence you have,
Yeah.
and then we can have a proper
But let
debate.
me ask you this question, right? You would agree with me that if I made something to appear to be false, that is not false, that would make me a liar, right? Yeah. Right. So according to the Quran, it's stating that it was made to appear to the first Jews that they had crucified Christ the Messiah. That makes Allah a liar.
No. There's, like I said, there's.
So what other
No.
explanation?
The explanation is very clear. The explanation
Is?
the Muslims believe that they don't know the origins of Christ's death. That doesn't make them a liar. Just because someone says I don't know.
No,
to a certain
we're talking
question,
about
that
the
does-
appearance.
No. Just because someone says I don't know. If you ask me a question and I say I don't know, that doesn't
You've
make me a liar.
misunderstood the Quran.
No. I
The
haven't.
Quran says that they didn't
From that
crucify him and that he didn't die. And that he was raised up to Allah. And that Allah made, well, it doesn't say Allah, but it says it was made to appear to them that it was so, but they are in doubt and full of conjecture. Right, hold on 1 second. If the fact, just think logically for me. Think logically for me. Christ was a well-known rabbi. He went around preaching. He was followed by thousands of people, and he was known to the Jewish authorities. What could have made them think that they had actually crucified Christ, but not? The only way that that makes sense is that there is somehow a divine intervention by Allah to make them think something that is not true. Because Christ was well known, people followed him. The Jews confronted him, the Pharisees confronted him. They were talking to him on the cross, mocking him. So they obviously thought that they were speaking to Jesus. The only way, and this is what Muslim scholars say, by the way, the only way that this could make sense is if somehow Allah is responsible for them thinking that they had crucified him. So if Allah is responsible and he's making someone believe something that is false, what is Allah?
What are you going to try and get me to say? I'm
asking you.
I'm not going to say he's a liar.
Okay, right.
Because like I said, I have to gather. You presented evidence. Let me look at and do my research.
Sure.
And then I can make a conclusion.
Okay,
You
that's
can't
fine.
just-
No, I appreciate
you can't
that.
just-
I appreciate that. In the science of hadith, I'll leave you with this one final thought. In the science of hadiths, can you trust a liar?
Just a general statement. Can I trust a liar?
In the science of hadiths.
Can I trust a liar?
Yeah, in the science of
Then
hadiths.
I'm not gonna answer that. That's a loaded question. That's a loaded
Okay.
question. That's a loaded question.
Have you got a gospel at home?
I haven't got a question.
Right, to help you start your research, because you said you're going to look into
I
it.
will.
Yeah, I'll give you these two. Have a read of it. That's an eyewitness account.
Okay, sure.
Have a read of it. Come back with your questions next week.
I will.
And God willing, if I'm here, I'll answer them. If I'm not here next week, I do come often. So look out for me. And when you see me, just grab me. We'll go to one side and we'll talk more. You have a good day. It's really good to talk to you. You have a nice day. We spoke again about this question. That in the Quran, we have two things that are happening. One, we have what really happened to Jesus on the cross. And two, the statement in the Quran that those who believe that Christ was crucified are in doubt and full of conjecture. But when we compare these two statements to the available evidence outside of the scriptures, we find actually that Christians are in universal agreement that Christ was crucified and did die on a cross, and that Muslims are in dispute about what actually happened, conjecturing many theories about what happened, which means that the Quran has got it wrong, because the Quran says that we Christians should be in doubt and full of conjecture, but the reality is, when you look into the evidence, it's the Muslims that are in doubt and full of conjecture. So the Quran has made a false statement. The Quran says that Christ wasn't crucified, it was made to appear to them. If that is true, then that means we must conclude Allah is responsible, because how else could a well-known rabbi, a teacher with a followers of thousands, who is an opponent to the Pharisees and known to them and by them, be misrecognized by anything other than divine intervention, which makes Allah a liar. And according to the science of hadiths, you cannot trust a liar. According to Islamic logic, you have to reject the Quran, because the source of the Quran is not trustworthy. If the evidence and the logic leads you out of Islam, you have to go in that direction. The Gospels are clear. Christ was crucified, died on a cross, and rose on the third day. The pagan historians are also clear. Christ was crucified. The church fathers are also clear. Christ was crucified and rose on the third day. Something happened to the first Christians that made them so convinced that they preached Christ risen from the dead. What? What could convince people of that fact? What experience could they have that would convince them? Something convinced them and radically changed their perception of reality, that many of them went on to die for this belief. The only theory that makes sense of the historical evidence is that it actually happened, as described. They didn't hear this from someone else, they were not deceived and brought into a belief. They were the very first people to preach it, so they believed it before anyone else, which means that they are the originators and they had an original experience. And this is what I'm presenting to Muslims here. I'm asking Muslims to deal with these facts. The fact that the Quran makes Allah out to be a liar, the fact that the Quran puts into Allah's mouth words that are evidently not true, and the fact that the gospel is correlated by other historical accounts and is earlier written in the time by eyewitnesses or those who had access to eyewitnesses and the community that was born around those eyewitnesses. The statement in the Quran was made 600 years later in a foreign language by a man who witnessed nothing in a completely different culture and context. Who would you believe?